Steve, we're back. I'm a little smelly today. Good thing this is on Zoom.
You're smelly?
Yes. The
Doesn't work on
dogs,
a podcast, but go ahead.
no, the dogs got into it with the skunk last night after the Super Bowl. So my Super Bowl was great. The aftermath was not.
And I'm guessing the dog's lost.
The dogs lost, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, God, skunks suck. Um,
The thing I learned is it's so strong that it doesn't smell like skunk anymore. It just smells worse than skunk. It smells like what I imagine tear gas to smell like.
and that's true, right? And the tough part is if you bathe them, right? And I'm sure you did, right? You bathe them, and then they're going to shake that stuff off, right? Or you're going to dry them off with something, right?
Oh,
And it's just like it just
it's everywhere.
yes, it's like well, you're too young. This is old guy, young guy. It's like stick 'em from Lester Hayes. It just ends up everywhere.
It's not. 0 out of 10 would not recommend. 10 out of 10 would recommend this podcast, which is called Stuff Summer Says. Nope, that's the website. Stuff Summer Says podcast with
Steve,
Steve. We have a website. It's called stuffsummersays.com. There's a section on that website called with.
Steve.
But we're not at that point in the show yet. So we're gonna talk about the Super Bowl because it's our Super Bowl recap extravaganza show. Um, I also have another old guy, young guy. That's an actual old guy, young guy. But I think we'll do this our traditional style. Let's go through it. Game, halftime show, commercials, and then I think we'll cap it off with the broadcast, or maybe we'll just
What
kind
about the
of.
prop bets? How'd I do?
Oh, yeah, but I don't want to talk about that.
Okay, never mind.
You won. You won. I
Oh
think
wow.
you you. There were a couple pushes, but if I remember correctly, it was like the final score shook out to like 4-2.
Gonna say I didn't
Uh,
do very well, so you must have done really poorly.
yeah. I took too big of a risk. So congrats to Steve on winning all of our prop bets this year. Okay, let's talk about where you want to start.
You said we were
Tell me
starting with
where
the
you want to start.
game, right? Is that what you said?
It doesn't
Let's
matter.
go
You
there.
tell me
That's the
where.
Super Bowl, right? Let's right.
Okay,
Sure.
all right. Um, a boring game for 3 quarters, and then a relatively interesting game for 2 quarters, which sounds weird because there were 5 quarters essentially played. Um, None of it necessarily surprised me. And maybe I just missed the memo, but I did think it was a little low scoring. I did think it was a little with when European soccer teams and European football teams play championship matches, a lot of times they're like 1-0 or like low scoring affairs, right? And it's kind of everybody just kind of waiting for somebody to make a mistake. And it kind of felt like that's what we witnessed, which was kind of waiting for somebody to make a mistake. But I didn't really feel like either team made a mistake. I think it was more so Patrick Mahomes had the ball and it mattered most, and he's a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah, I mean they both played great defense early on, which seemed good. I thought San Francisco was controlling the lines on both sides. I mean they had fumbles and made some mistakes, but I don't think a mistake cost the game. I think best quarterback in the league made plays when he needed to, and they did a great job. I mean, I don't think it was so much what San Francisco didn't do as what the Chiefs did do, and it got entertaining and compelling at the end, which was nice.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. About what the Chiefs did do. Um, the honestly, the most interesting thing about the game was the fumbles early on, which it was weird because it almost reminded me of last year with how the players were all slipping on the field. It was like kind of like there were that many fumbles, obviously not necessarily the same. So that was interesting. And then there was like the little Travis Kelce meltdown that I think that everybody can kind of laugh off now. But I would have wondered what happened in the alternate universe where the Chiefs don't win and how that's looked at. Um, particularly in the media's eyes. Um, but yeah, I thought it was a one of the better recent. It wasn't the best Super Bowl, but it comparatively to some of the other recent Super Bowls, it was one of the better ones. Um, I think that. Do you? I know we're not necessarily an NFL podcast, but do you think the Chiefs are a dynasty? Are you fully accepting them as a dynasty?
In this day and age, 3 and 5 years, yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
and they're not. Patrick Mahomes, what's around him in some places. I mean, their offensive line didn't look super. I mean, yay for Donovan Brown for getting the ring and whatever else, but they did really well without feeling like the most talented team on the field.
Yeah.
Not that they were under
I,
talented, but I don't know that they were the most talented of the two.
I think that's a good way to put it. Like they did nothing to necessarily wow me, but it was equally as impressive. It was a collective body of work, I think would be a good way to put it. So yeah, no, I'll buy that they're a dynasty. I mean, I don't know. I don't see anybody stopping that quarterback anytime soon. So I think that's
He's scary good when he needed to be, right? Like, I mean, I think
yeah.
there were maybe some struggles early on, but I think both defenses deserve credit for what they did. And but he just at the end of the game took over, made some throws that he connected on some throws that he wasn't connecting on earlier, running when he needed to. Just I don't know that he willed them to win because I don't think it was him alone, but he was certainly the leader and certainly deserving of the MVP.
He took over the game the way, and like I know people were like, "Oh, Michael Jordan." I think Tony Romo made the Michael Jordan analysis like immediately after, but he took it over the way any of those types of athletes do in those types of moments, and I think that's what stood out and was the most interesting to me. One thing I noticed that I'd never noticed before in a Super Bowl, and maybe it was just because I just happened to see it more often, the extra officials that were around the field was a weird ad. There was a tussle maybe at the end of half, end of one of the quarters or end of the half, and like 4,000 of them just kind of came out of nowhere. Um, so that was interesting to see in terms of the Super Bowl. And then I think the main thing was then the overtime situation. Um, and I think this will tee nicely into the broadcast. So we'll go to the broadcast after this. Um, it was not explained well to me. I understood that uh, I understood that both teams were getting the ball, and whoever got the ball second, which in this case was the Chiefs, would have a chance to fully answer. I did not understand or know until honestly until right before the final play of the game that why the Chiefs were taking their time because nobody explained what the timing situation was, and that was an absolute miss. Um, and I think that was like going into the broadcast. What the hell is Gene Steratore there for? Like even Jim Nantz was like, "Well, Gene, you want to take a shot at explaining these?" And it seemed like he didn't know. It was weird.
Yeah, I mean, even college football, right? Anymore, when it goes into overtime, they're going to stick that graphic on the screen and explain what's going on. Didn't happen. And I didn't know. Well, when I had an inkling of it was when Tony Romo said it. And I wouldn't trust Tony Romo with anything he said about anything in the world. Right. So when he's saying, oh, this is like the first quarter, I'm like, what is he drinking now? Like, and why aren't they in a hurry? Because the clock's running out. Like I thought they had two possessions. And when time ended at the end of the overtime period, it was over. I did not know the rule, and they did not serve viewers in that way, which, on one hand doesn't surprise me, and on the other hand is just, well, disappointing. So I guess it's the same heavy hand of not serving us.
Maybe 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 this is the catalyst for changing the role collectively, like the regular season role, getting rid of ties and changing it this way collectively, because I think that would have had we had that like transparency, I think that would have been a little more clear going into the season. Then we had a couple of season games where we were like, okay, this is how this works, but it works apparently differently in the playoffs, and obviously like it has to go on until somebody wins the game, particularly in the playoffs. But I I don't know. Yeah, the that felt like I don't care how casual of your audience is, or if you and I are sitting here talking about it, good Lord, I have to imagine a lot of people that aren't necessarily plugged into football the same way we are were hella confused.
Yeah, yes, I think serve viewers. And I just think, and it felt like in the broadcast, the disconnect was internal some ways. I thought CBS's production, whether you're seeing the officials on the sideline, whether you're seeing the guy who injured his Achilles getting ready to run out on the field, they had great graphics. I mean, I don't know about design, but
Mm,
well timed. It's been this many
mm.
times since, and they were at the right time. And in some cases, the broadcasters made reference to them. In other cases, they left them just sit on the screen. And I appreciate you don't have to beat people over the head with that, but there were some good numbers. So I feel like they were prepared production wise, and the folks delivering the information missed a little bit. I think one of the biggest misses early, especially with the Achilles injury and the speed with which the 49ers were playing, was let's talk about the turf. The story the whole week leading up to the game was the 49ers practice field, and it was soft. Didn't get mentioned at all during the game. Oh, are they running faster because now this is a harder surface and they feel better? Oh, did the guy pull his Achilles? You know, I just thought that was a miss in terms of obvious stuff. I mean, I don't think it was an awful broadcast, but I think at the Super Bowl with the production, the talent, the resources, the spotters, it's perfect's hard to expect in a live broadcast, but they weren't close to that either.
No. Mm-mm. What letter grade would you give it? I'm at a solid B minus.
Yeah, I would be generous with the B, but I'm comfortable with the B minus. Like I just
Yeah.
because there was that mix of, there's that mix of who you're serving, right? It's not a regular football viewer because those games get 50 million people. This gets 120. So who are you serving? How are you doing that? And I know it's a change in approach, but all season it's coming when you have the game. We're going to have the Super Bowl this year. What are we going to do a little differently?
Well,
It's just
yeah. No, that's a good way to. I agree with that because I want to go back to what you said about the graphics. So the graphics themselves, yes, they were good. Like the information that I was getting was good. There was one particular, I think it was fourth quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. Travis Kelce had a couple big catches on a drive, and they showed the first half, which he had 1 yard, and then it was like 56 yards in the second half, and it was just a very striking number to me that I was like, okay, that's impressive, and that's serving the viewer. But where I felt like, well, before we digress a little bit, we must talk about the new score bug. It's like it's bad. Like it looks like the team names or the team initials look like the fonts didn't properly render, and it just looked lazy and sloppy. And I can't believe somebody that makes $200,000 a year probably signed off on that.
oh, I agree. But I don't know the industry in terms of what they're trying to do and saying, let's make more room on the screen and keep it simple. And it's got to be on the big TVs as well as these devices, right? And what the other things they're trying to do to try to make sure it renders correctly in all the places they want it to render. And you're more of a score bug snob than I am. So I probably can't quite get there, but I don't disagree.
It felt like a step back for CBS, and they had the most average. Everything about CBS is so average. I think is no offense to anybody that works at CBS, but it feels very average. So I wanted to harp on that real quickly. But then I think the main attraction of the night in terms of broadcast. I want to the main play that I think I want to talk about that encapsulates everything is the final play of the game. It's Tony Romo talking through the time situation and just kind of spewing on and not knowing when to shut up and let Jim Nance take over. And then Jim has a great call, and I went back and actually listened to it, and he had a great little Vegas tie-in with Jackpot, and I thought that was great. And then Tony Romo just kind of starts talking, and like the team just like it was bizarre. He just was disconnected. And yet, going back to your production point, the the sequence of play and then the crowd reaction, particularly with Ross Travis slash Taylor Swift, it was perfect because that was what that whole moment was about. Because that even if that is Taylor Swift and that is Blake Lively and all these other celebrities celebrating, that is how every Kansas City Chiefs fan was feeling in that moment. And I thought that was a great like bang bang shot to get us kind of through that. But it was the guides to the story. Jim Nance was there, and I felt like Tony Romo, not as bad as he has been, but not as good as he can be. And maybe I don't know how good he can be.
I was gonna say, I don't think as good as someone in that role should be. I think he
Yes.
might be as good as he can be. I think he slowed down in the first half a little bit and didn't ramble as much. Um, but then, I mean, even the 49ers driving overtime, he said something about, well, the thing you can't do this time of the game is be running the ball. Like that's just, a ball. And then they ran the ball, and 2 plays later, he's like, oh, it's a great job for them running the ball. I'm like, dude, make up your mind. And that I don't feel more informed or smarter as a viewer having watched a game that Tony Romo worked. I think that's the overall summary of it. I don't doubt that. Well, I don't doubt that. I guess that he knows what he's talking about, but because he can't turn himself off, right? Your face is right. Because he can't turn himself off, and because he doesn't explain it clearly sometimes, I'm not sure he knows what he's talking about, right? Maybe he's just the Dallas quarterback who was in lots of production meetings through the years, is handsome, got a gig, had a good first year when he was hot predicting plays, and now that trick has run its course, and he's just okay. So I don't know. I think you're right. I think the storytellers that framed what we were seeing were not as strong as the pictures we were getting.
Well, and I think particularly with Romo is, and I think about this in the context of Kevin Burkhardt, and I think about this in the context of Tom Brady maybe taking over for, or I'm sorry, not Kevin Burkhardt, Greg Olson, um, is the Greg Olson's ability to slow down the game for me and make me, whether I watched 1,000 football games or 5 football games in my lifetime, or this is my first, he can make me understand why that happened. Tony Romo did not do that, has not done that, has just started saying, "This is the game, this is the game." How many times did we hear this is the Super Bowl? Like at some point when you say that, it loses its value. And I think it almost cheapens the, and I think that's why the final call and the touchdown to win the game felt meh, because it just, the with Tony Romo kind of talking through the time thing, and then boom, Jim Nantz making the call, and then Tony Romo just kind of uh, making noise. It was rough.
They kind of remind me of the old guy and the little kid from the movie Up, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's what it kind of, that's kind of, if they worked a game together, that's kind of what I envision them sounding like.
It's and So the other thing that happened, and I feel like we're harping on Tony Romo, but I think, I don't know. It's the Super Bowl. This is important. They're spending a lot of money for Tony Romo, more than some teams are paying their quarterback. Um, and I think even more than Brock Purdy was making last
It's
night.
true.
The thing that I was thinking about was Jim Nance. They come back from commercial at the end of the regulation. They come back and they show the shot of them in the booth. And Jim Nance is getting, like, doing his good theatrics, setting up the moment, building. And then Tony Romo is like, makes a joke about, like, "Are you sure about that, Jim?" or something like that. Like, and it just cheapened the experience. And I don't know. I just didn't enjoy it. And again, going back then to the other key guide in the situation, Gene Steratore. Why didn't they stop the clock on that Kyle Juszczyk play? Give me that immediately. He's there. It's not like he's not there. It was, and then
That may
of
be the
course
one
the
production
time.
thing. That may be
Yeah,
the one production thing. He's there. It's not like you got to go back to New York and find him. He's there, and it
yeah,
should be sooner with some stuff in those instances. I think too. Not that your analyst shouldn't know the things, but if you're going, and if you call your analyst in, then he gets the final say, and Tony doesn't need to come in and add on to it.
yeah,
He's the rules guy. Yep. Yeah, I agree, Gene. No, you don't need to. He's our guy. He's done it. He's talked for us.
yeah.
So
Be more definitive about bringing him in. Because I do think Gene is probably. I kind of like Dean Blandino a little bit more, because Dean Blandino is very, like, cut and dry. Here's what happened. Here's what I saw. Here is what the rule book tells us in that situation. Gene is like kind of putting his own little, well, we got to look at this and that, and eh. But I don't think he does a bad job. But just let him be the authority figure. That is why you pay him.
right, I agree.
Um, so that was that broadcast. Steve, did you watch any of the SpongeBob broadcast?
I didn't, and I should have. I thought about switching over and I didn't. And
I
I love
regret
Noah Eagle, and I should have.
I regret not watching it or DVRing it. I'm hoping that somehow I can find a way to rewatch it because I did have it on, and I kept we had it on. I had the game on the TV, and then I had it on my computer, the SpongeBob broadcast, like occasionally, and I would check it, turn the sound on, see what they were talking about, and I had the thought of like, what am I missing that I wouldn't be getting from that situation type thing. Um, and I don't know. I kind of think I should have turned it on because it was fun. It seemed fun. I think Patrick and SpongeBob they did a nice job with that, picking good characters. Like that's a good
Yep.
character set to utilize. Um, I liked the little celebrity shout outs that they kind of kept showing up on social media,
Mhm.
of like Snoop Dogg, Fish, and some of the other characters. So I thought it was clever, and it didn't detract from the main event in any way.
No, I think they know what they're trying to do and have a plan. And it's easier to do it right in some ways because it's more about the presentation and whatever else. But yeah, I kind of regret not doing that. And it's probably not something what Nickelodeon's Paramount owned, right? So that's not going to have a Super Bowl broadcast next year because it's not a CBS game. So it'll be a playoff game.
Yeah. Um. So, but it seemed like the people that did watch it, the reviews were very good of it. Like people enjoyed it. But I don't think that the people that I'm getting the reviews from are necessarily the target audience for said. Well, I mean,
No, and
I'm
they still had a good time with it though, right? That's the
yeah.
best part. So at least you know they were doing something good.
So okay, all right. Well, like that takes care of the game. Anything about the broadcast that you feel like you got everything off your
I
chest?
got it all. I got it all off my chest, I think.
Okay, proud of you. Happy for you. Steve, how I think you said you hit the under on the halftime. I gave you the under on the halftime
Songs, yeah.
songs.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were your thoughts? Did you watch any of the halftime show? Because I know you were thinking about doing dishes at that
I did
point.
do dishes because the TV's there. I could hear it. This is I was a little sick this weekend, so maybe this skewed maybe I was just not in the mood for. I feel like I've seen that halftime show before. I feel like it's an individual hip hop artist who brought in some friends and they hit their high notes together and they did whatever. I feel like very entertaining performance. Crowd loved it, but I think they've done that show before in some ways. So it was my reaction. Um, and for
I
people for whom it worked, it worked. Like I great reviews,
Yeah,
people loved it. So yeah,
I am in the generation that is supposed to enjoy that halftime
and you
show.
did.
I did not. I hated
Oh,
it.
never mind.
And I think
Why not?
and okay, here's what happened. Earlier in the day, I was like, I always sit down and try to watch a couple halftime shows from yesteryear. And I always make sure I watch the Tom Petty one, and I always make sure I watch the Prince one. And the Prince one is like amazing because he just gets up there and just he's just like, I'm gonna play half of my songs and half cover songs, and you're gonna deal with it, and I'm gonna melt your face off. And Usher gets up there, and his microphone is 17 feet away from his face, like this, and then he is like dancing and barely singing. And I don't know. He played like 10 songs, like the over hit on that. And he played like 10 songs, and we heard like maybe four words of each. It was I don't know.
It's a
Maybe
performance. It's not a concert, right? So it's a show. But yeah, I think it's a tough balance always to find the person, right? Which is why there hasn't been a person. It's always they name somebody in September, October, and then the speculation for the next couple of months is who are they going to have with them? Well, pick somebody who's big enough just to carry the stinking show by themselves, and you won't have to have that speculation. But I mean, it sounded like I thought it would sound. It just I feel like I've seen that approach before. Not that you can do something different every time, but I'm shocked that it
uh,
didn't resonate with you.
nah, no, just didn't like it. Didn't like it.
Okay.
Didn't I don't know. And then a couple people pointed out about him roller skating around, and it just reminded a lot of people of Starlight Express. And so that was what I thought of.
It's early next year. Who is if Darian could book the Apple Music Super Bowl halftime show?
Well, so I don't know. I wish they would lean into
Where's the game
it's in
next?
New Orleans, and so
Okay.
I wish they would lean a little bit more, but there's not really like a blues artist or like an R&B like R&B that style of that style of like Southern music kind of popular enough. I I kind of want I don't know. I still always want the Foo Fighters. Like I feel like the Foo Fighters not playing a halftime show is gonna be if it shakes out that way, it's gonna be the greatest travesty in the history of halftime shows.
Okay.
Um, so that would be like my guess. I don't know. I feel like we might just get a repeat and get like Post Malone and some other people to come along and sing with them. Maybe Ariana Grande, but again, I think you're gonna go back to the same issue of like you're gonna have friends show up. Maybe Bieber. Give me Bieber. I bet Bieber would do a good job.
Okay. Hasn't done it before?
Hasn't done it before, not to my
I don't
knowledge.
think Post Malone, because I do think Post Malone's dropping a country record this year, and I think that will make him ineligible for the Super Bowl halftime show because no country artist is considered big enough to do that, right? And they may not be
There's
because
one,
the showiness of it. Ooh,
Garth Brooks. I would watch Garth. Well, think about it. Garth Brooks calling Baton Rouge in Louisiana at a Super Bowl. People lose their mind.
you're
Like
not wrong.
he's got the appeal.
You're
Got the
right.
appeal. So, all right. So who was your who would be your guess? Sorry.
I didn't think I was gonna. I'll say the one, and you can roll your eyes.
Okay.
I didn't know she had turned them down before. And
Martina McBride.
Colin Kaepernick rolls. No, Pink. Entertaining, would put on a show,
Yeah,
could carry it herself, has just done a stadium tour this last year.
I know you love her, would die for her, because you're a dad, and that's like required. But
And I know it's
yeah.
not going to happen, but I don't know music enough. I'm too old to know the music that they would put out there at halftime. So,
See, but I think
so
we're
We have Garth Brooks and Pink's as the Stuff Summer Says podcast recommendations. Though those
that's
are not
ours.
weak.
If yes, if you're listening to us, that's our the thing that a couple people pointed out last night, and I don't think they're wrong, is your generation got the stretch like well after the whole Janet Jackson thing of Bruce, Prince, Petty, then there was like the Who and maybe Paul McCartney somewhere in there. Um, kind of got like your generation
Mhm.
pandered to. I think my generation is about to get that treatment, and I
Yep.
think Usher was kind of the start of that. Um, I don't know. Maybe give me like a what's Britney Spears up to? Maybe we could get her out of whatever. That'd be fun. I don't know.
Well,
Or do like get the boy bands, get in sync back together, and get Backstreet Boys back together, and
yeah,
let them do it. That'd be fun. It's
there you go.
good appeal. All right. Uh, that leaves the last key element, the commercials. Steve, I need to pull it up here, but I wrote my top five commercials, but I'm just gonna hear what commercials stood out to you in your list.
I did a little Broadway fanboy when the Wicked thing started right at the beginning of the game. Like I'm like, okay, I'm just
Wait,
excited for the movie.
wait a second. Steve's a Broadway guy?
Oh no, well, there's you need to know the Wicked inside story, and I'm sure the viewers and listeners that have gotten this far will appreciate that we saw Wicked on Broadway, and it's over, and we're done, and we're walking out, and I'm like, so that was her father? Like, I
Spoilers. I haven't seen it.
yeah, well, it doesn't matter. I'm slow on the uptake, and Susan was like, how could you not pick up all the clues? Like, how could you not be? So I'm like, okay, it'll be a good movie.
Okay,
I thought
wait. Let me just confess this, and I had several New York slash two friends that have theater slash that type of arts degrees shame me for this. I've never seen a Broadway play or Broadway anything.
musical, okay, all right.
So, but the Wicked thing, it was funny because I got to show Anna I'm sure you've seen the guys arguing about the Wicked Witch of the East Bro video. I got to show her that. So,
I'll have to get you to a musical next year or so.
okay.
Um, I think Dunkin' Donuts did a really good job. I think the right cameos, the right people, because the approach was all stars and big moments, but those are the right people that made it work. They built off last year's, there was history. So I think I like that maybe among the best of
I,
all.
let me say this about the Duncan one as I sit here and drink my Duncan.
I saw.
Um, The Dunkin' commercial was the best Super Bowl commercial in the last 10 years. It will be it was a instant classic for me of it was up there with What's Up and like those that level of fame for me. I just thought it was like that was everything what a Super Bowl commercial should be. Get a lot of stars, make me laugh uncontrollably, and I just have fun. It was good.
I think everybody else was trying to do that and couldn't.
It-
I mean,
it-
realistically,
yeah,
every other one, whether it was Tina Fey and we get the Glenn Close reveal or whatever,
didn't get
like
that one.
none of them hooked me or I was engaged. Like maybe I just, again, wasn't feeling super well. Maybe the humor wasn't resonating. And maybe by the second half, I was ready for some laughter. Um, but I thought that was probably the best of the bunch. The Oreo twist on it thing was kind of cute. Same thing, maybe not to that level. Um, and then, sentimental stuff. I like the Volkswagen bug thing, like with the Volkswagen through the years thing, what they started with the bug coming over and that kind
Mm-hmm.
of stuff. Um, and even as dad of daughters, right, the Dove commercial early on about women's body image, I'm like, okay, at least you have a message, right? You're not
Mm-hmm.
here to joke with me. This is on brand for Dove because they do this stuff with women's body issues. It's a good commercial. So probably my top
Okay.
4 or 5-ish, I guess is what I mentioned.
All right. Yeah, so my number one was the clear Duncan. I thought that was great. My number two was the Christopher Walken one. I thought
Yes.
thought that was very well thought out with then having the Usher cameo and just like because I guarantee you that's Christopher Walken's life. It's just everybody doing the impersonation back to Christopher Walken. So I
Yep.
thought that was good. Um, the Baja Blast one was just excellent because number one, we just finished rewatching Parks and Rec for the 19,000th time, and I don't know, I love Baja Blast, and it was nice. Like I had parts of that one spoiled for me, but I didn't see the plot twist with Nick Offerman coming, and so
Yep.
that really like added a nice punch. I thought the Kawasaki one for a brand that really hasn't done a Super Bowl commercial hit it out of the park. I
With
thought
the
that one
mullets.
was yeah. I
Yep.
thought that one was great. And had Stone Cold kind of show up anytime you can kind of see him, you know, break his shell. And then I thought the Reese's one was good because I like a good Reese's commercial. I thought they put a little clever.
Yeah, I
I
had that all
also
like I had ups and downs, and those were all in my ups, but probably
yeah,
not my top 5 ups. Yeah.
I I thought I, I don't know the Tina Fey one didn't it was fine. Uh, that one was all right. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones I didn't necessarily
The
enjoy.
M&M's one was like the celebrity thing and tried to, but it just didn't work.
Yeah,
Like it just, I mean, it had Charlotte Johansson in it, which was okay. There's a redeeming value at the end,
yeah.
but otherwise, it just same kind of thing. Here's the blueprint: big brand, big names, a little bit of humor, and they check some boxes, but it just didn't feel funny.
The Mick Ultra one with Messi and Dan Marino and Jason Sudeikis and
And I thought you'd
there
have that higher because we did soccer and Ted Lasso
it
and
just kind of I don't know. It was
Dan
it,
Marino had a couple ads. Like
he had at
it was a
least
big year for Dan Marino.
yeah, good for Dan Marino for
Yeah.
making that money. Um the other one that missed the one that missed the most for me was the MGM one. Um the with Vince Vaughn and Gretzky and I don't remember who
I
else
feel
was
like that's who Vince Vaughn is, though. Like, I mean, I think that's the person he
yeah,
plays all the time.
that's yeah. So I don't know. I it was a little bit of a miss for me.
Paramount
Can we
Plus and Captain Picard.
was funny with Hey
Okay.
Arnold was
Yep.
very funny. I enjoyed that one. The thing I want to stop doing is the Gronk kicking. First off, that one aired early.
Yes.
So why are you gonna pummel me with it and then air it early? That one because I think it might have even been before. It was like before kickoff, but like
It was early. Yeah.
during the game, like the game presentation part. That was like I don't know. I don't need to see Gronk kick a football again. I think he missed on purpose this time. Like I think the last time he didn't miss on purpose, this time he did, for whatever
And
reason.
I don't know how much their plans changed, if at all, with the Carl Weathers thing, right? Like, because
Mm,
I assume he would have been in it or involved.
yeah.
So maybe that forced them to change their plans on the kicking approach. But yeah, I agree.
Um,
But people love Gronk. Like, I mean, apparently. So
I don't.
if you're,
I mean, I
what I
like
thought when that
Gronk.
happened was, boy, if you're Pat McAfee, you have to be pissed, right? Like,
Well, yeah.
I mean, FanDuel's not going to do with him after they broke up, but good Lord, of anybody that you could do it with. I mean, it looked like a bad college game day segment. Realistically, it
Yeah.
looked like one of those guys they pulled from the stands and stood him along some bookstore on some college campus and told him to kick, and he missed.
Yeah. Why not have like, I think last year they did it with a little more pyrotechnics and like why not have some like dirt bikes jumping over and like,
Well, because they screwed
planes
up
flying.
last year, right? We missed it. We missed part of it, didn't it? What didn't they
I
miss the
forget.
kick somehow? There were
Yeah.
technical difficulties, so I think they were
Yeah.
probably trying to dumb down and make sure it happened. But yeah, I agree.
Um, so that one stood out, and then the god awful Timu one. Which did you know what
Lots of
Timu?
them.
Did you know what that is? Because I did, but I didn't know.
Yeah,
Like,
they pop up on my social feeds because I bought
yeah,
some stuff online. So now I'm sure they like, oh, here, buy from here. So yeah,
yeah. Okay, all
I
right,
I, I
good.
was just suppressed. Like there were a couple brands. I'm like, really, this is what you're spending money on? Like this is going to help your awareness that much? Like you have a budget, and this is the most wise spend. But I guess it is if you're in front of that many people. But I thought there were a couple brands. I was like, really, this is what you're going to do with that money?
I, I mean, that's the thing. The commercials that you and I just talk through, we remember because number one, they're prominent brands, but two, they were really good. The other ones that we don't necessarily remember, we don't remember because they weren't good. I don't know. If you're coming out on Super Bowl night like that, you can't miss. You can't because otherwise you're gonna waste $7 million.
Right. And it just felt like some of those companies probably couldn't afford to miss and probably did. So
Yeah. Um. Oh, you know which ones that I didn't like? The the home.com ones. The
I was,
apartments.com ones were great, like the few years ago. They were great with Jeff Goldblum. The home.com, like they have too many of them. Like we get it. You're doing a bit. I don't know.
yeah, no, there were 3 or 4 of those, right? And as I think about them, and we have friends who are realtors and whatever else, I thought for me, the old guy, right? Thinking, oh, this is really changing. Like this is more and more people are going to buy their houses this way. Like,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
no,
so
still need a realtor in most states, I think.
we'll see.
All right. This week's old guy, young guy. Anything else about the Super Bowl? You feel good
No,
about the
let's do
Super
the
Bowl?
old guy, young guy. You said you
Okay.
had something, so I'm
I
curious.
we may have done this one already, but
I want
I
to tell
want
me.
I want to know what time does the Samsel family get to the airport? Like if the like how
Depends on who's
early?
in charge.
Ooh, ooh.
It depends. I'm a get there early. They
How
have
early?
Wi-Fi. Like, I mean,
You're
we're
flying and
pro
you're not flying out of state college because
no,
that doesn't count. That's a
no,
little,
but even I'm probably arriving for a domestic flight not much later than they would recommend you arrive for an international flight.
wow. So Steve
And
likes
I
to think
and
ahead.
and I still think the best thing we've ever spent money on is TSA pre, right? So I know what's going to happen, right? We're going to get through the lines and we're going to hurry up and wait. But I like my company that I'm waiting with, so that's a victory, and I'm there, right? And nothing else because nothing. What else am I going to be doing but waiting to leave? So I might as well even get there.
All right, I respect that. I'll start the process early. We just got pre-check. I'm traveling next week for work, and so this was kind of why I was thinking about this. But we just got pre-check, and I used to be like you, like we're getting there, like let's get there 3 hours early. Not really, but like ideally heading to through the airport doors about 2 hours before my flight
Mhm.
takes off. Even if it's an airport like Reagan, it takes 2 seconds to get through Reagan. BWI, pretty much the only one that here down here is a pain in the ass is Dulles because you got to take a people mover. Um, Now with TSA pre-check, I feel a little more relaxed. I feel like I'm okay. I will still give myself enough time to get to the airport, but once I get to the airport, I ain't rushing. Like I know I'm getting through the line in 2 seconds. It's significantly better than than not having it. So this is a weird ad for TSA pre-check.
How no big ad for PTSA pre-check. Although I don't want people to do it because then they're going to clog up my line. But
That's
still,
true. Yeah.
how you're going for a long weekend?
Okay.
What are you packing? Like what are the bags that are making the trip?
The
Is this are
bags.
you is
So
this a carry-on trip for you, or do you have to check something?
no, I never check a bag.
Okay, that
I
was
never check a bag. Haven't I don't I haven't checked a bag without being told to check a bag. And
right.
one of the last times I did that, they told me to check the bag at the gate, and then they lost my bag, and I didn't have a swimsuit, so I had to go buy a swimsuit in San Diego. Now they got a nice $70 like pair of like beach shorts out of it, but you know. Um, so
That
I
may be
don't.
our biggest disconnect is whether or not to check. Like, because on
You check a
apps, if
bag?
I don't have enough that I have to check it, right? Like I can get into a backpack and a roller bag for 2 weeks in Europe, like easily, like so easily in a long weekend I could too. But it's just like, okay, well, if it's a nonstop, like if it's Pittsburgh to Nashville, right? And they want to check my bags, they think it's going to be full. Go ahead and take it. Like it's going to show up. It's going to
What?
show up, right? Like they can't lose it. There's no stop. So maybe that's the thing. If there's stops, maybe I'm a little less worried about it. But Susan will hold out. She's like, nah, they'll give us some money at some point or we'll get on. But the tough part with like say Southwest, if we're not in a priority group in Union Group C, then you're like looking for places for stuff. But
Yeah.
first world problems.
Yeah. Okay. No, so like when we travel for Penn State football weekends, right? Like that's a weekend
Yep.
trip for us. We usually fly Thursday or Friday. Um, that's a suitcase and a backpack, but a lightly packed backpack.
Yep.
But when we go to like Europe, it will be it will be a very full suitcase carry on and then a relatively full backpack of other stuff I might need.
Yeah. Like if it's not, if I don't have to worry about work, it becomes a lot easier because the laptop's in the not in the backpack. But
Oh, so you don't travel with your laptop?
oh, 95 or 99% of the time I do. So if I can
Oh,
get rid of it,
okay.
the times I can, it's a great
Really?
deal.
Oh, that like I
I just
need.
won't bring it. Like, but I just got to know I'm not going to need to touch something. But I'm probably always going to need. There's always something I can do. Like, there's always downtime, right? Like, if we wait again for a long weekend in Nashville and we've partied for 2 nights, right? We get up the next morning, we have breakfast. Okay, I can probably have an hour if between one of us taking turns going to the gym where I can get some stuff done, right? And it's almost worth it to have it with that trip. So
Wow, can't believe Steve does work while on vacation. Steve, you never have to work when you're
in this job, I know. If I know when I'm off, I'm off.
at
It's
this
great.
job. Yeah, you're off.
That's right.
All right, that's it. That's it for this week's podcast. Um, okay. This week coming up, I think we'll see. Depends on how the skunk situation goes. You're I feel confident. I need to get. We did not go to sleep till about 3 a.m. So I'll probably work on this tomorrow. Maybe put it out. Let's see. It is today's Monday, so Tuesday. We will do our first ever NIL survey. I think we're gonna ask some
Okay, cool.
questions to get some temperature check, and then we'll send those results at some point, probably next week. We'll maybe a week after to discuss that on the old podcast. I think that will pair nicely. So
Nice.
there's that. We will also have an interview at some point, probably maybe even next week's episode, with Sweeney Murdy, who is a Penn State alum, who essentially is kind of in charge or a big factor in the MLB's social media channels after a career at WFAN. Great conversation, great energy with him. So check out that interview. Uh, any other housekeeping, Mr. Samsel? You might write something.
Might write
You,
something, might blog again. I'm feeling
you're
bad
on
about
fire this
blogging
week.
about the women's basketball team because now they've lost two in a row, but we'll see.
Every time we write about them, every time I or you
I
write about
know
them,
they're like
we
0 and
jinx
3
it.
after I write about them.
Yeah, yeah,
But you
we
know,
jinx it. So, okay. So that's what's coming down the pipe. In the meantime, we've got a website. It's called stuffsummersays.com. On that website, there's a section called With
Steve,
Steve. We've got a podcast which you're listening to. 5 stars, thumbs up, subscribe if you're watching over in that general vicinity. Um, Let's see what else we got to talk about. We've got to talk about we already talked about the website. We've got emails. Mine's Darian at stuffsummersays.com. Steve's is,
Steve at stuffsummersays.com.
and then we've got Twitter handles. Mine's at stuffsummersays. Steve's is.
At Steve Samsel.
All right. Goodbye. I'm gonna go try to smell things that aren't skunk.